Hello everyone and welcome to another session of my anatomy class. Today we are going to study the second cervical vertebra or the axis. It is one of the atypical cervical vertebrae. I have already told you that the first, the atlas, the second, the axis, and the seventh cervical vertebrae are the atypical one, and the second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth are considered to be the typical cervical vertebrae. Now behind me on the board here you can see the number of pictures that I have drawn. Right now they appear to be a jumble of lines, but I suppose they'll make sense by and by. So first let us look at the bone itself at close quarters. So this is the axis or the second cervical vertebra. As you can see, it's different from the rest. And the parts first. The axis has got a body. This is the body. It has a pair of pedicles, short and robust over here. It has the articular processes bearing the superior articular facets on the undersurface, the inferior articular facets, and then these are the laminae, and this is the robust bifid spine joining the two laminae. Not only that, from the sides of the articular pillars and the pedicles and the junction of the laminae you have these pointed transverse processes, one on this side, one on this side, and within the transverse process you can make out this opening, the foramen transversarium on this side, foramen transversarium on this side. Now a little bit of detailing. The body, as you can see, it has an anterior surface, it has a posterior surface deep inside over here, it has a superior surface bearing this peg-like odontoid process, and it has an inferior surface, and it has two lateral surfaces. On the superior surface you can see this peg-like odontoid process. It tapers to a sharp tip over here. The sides are slightly flattened, and at the neck over here you have a groove. And on the inferior surface of the body you can see the rough area for the attachment of the intervertebral disc for its articulation with the third cervical vertebra. And on the inferior surface again you can make out that this ventral edge is beaked, it's pointing downwards, and it will be covering slightly the intervertebral disc between C2 and C3. And on the anterior and the posterior surface of the body you can make out a few openings for the basivertebral veins over here. The lateral sides of the body here and here give rise to the pedicles. So the superior surface, inferior surface, anterior surface, posterior surface, and the two lateral surfaces. Now the pedicles themselves are quite short, and you have a shallow upper vertebral notch, intervertebral notch at the upper part is shallow, and the lower intervertebral notch is a bit deep. And beyond the pedicles you have these articular processes bearing the superior articular facets and the inferior articular facets. These are forming synovial plane joints with the inferior articular facets of the atlas. So it's going to look somewhat like this with the atlas in position. This is how it looks like. Again, on the odontoid process over here you have a flattened facet for articulating with the posterior surface of the anterior arch of the atlas. Again, on the atlas you take another look, you can make out that this is how the articulation is. So there is a polished part over here and there is a polished part over here. Coming back to the laminae are broad and they have an outer surface and an inner surface, and the spine is bifid, very powerful, robust, and the transverse processes here again tapering, and you don't have an anterior and a posterior tubercle, they are fused to one common lateral point over here. Now if you come to the attachments, again on the anterior surface of the body you expect the anterior longitudinal ligament passing from the body up into the atlas. On the posterior surface of the body you expect the posterior longitudinal ligament. This passes up in continuation as the membrana tectoria. We will see on the board a bit later. So you have the anterior longitudinal ligament passing up into the atlas, you have the posterior longitudinal ligament becoming the ligamentum tectoria. Again, if you look at the odontoid process, from the tip you have an apical ligament going up into the occipital bone. From the flattened sides you have alar ligaments going up again into the occipital bone. At the neck you have the restraining transverse ligament of the atlas. It's not part of the axis, it's part of the atlas, so you have a transverse ligament over here, and that transverse ligament has an upper band and a lower band. So the superior band of the transverse ligament, inferior band of the transverse ligament, and the transverse band itself, they form a cruciate structure. So this is a cruciate ligament complex as well. Now if you look at the inferior surface of the body, we have already said this is forming a secondary cartilaginous joint with the intervention of an intervertebral disc between C2 and C3. Coming to the pedicles, above the pedicles you expect the passage of the second pair of cervical spinal nerves dividing into a ventral ramus and a dorsal ramus, ventral ramus passing anteriorly, dorsal ramus curling back posteriorly. And these facets, as we have already mentioned, they are forming synovial plane joints, a pair above, a pair below, the superior pair articulating with the atlas, the inferior pair articulating with the third cervical vertebra. And through the foramen, and in the transverse process you have this foramen transversarium, and through the foramen transversarium you will have the passage of the vertebral artery, its accompanying veins and nerves. The central part is the part of the vertebral canal, and the central part transmits the spinal cord with its associated coverings, the meninges, the pia, arachnoid, dura, the epidural venous plexus, and some amount of loose areolar tissue. Between these lamina, adjacent lamina, there is the ligamentum flavum, one on this side, one on this side, attached to the lamina of the third cervical vertebra below and attached above here. And to the spine you have the attachment of the ligamentum nuchae and a small interspinous ligament, and between the adjacent transverse processes you have a very small intertransverse ligament, almost insignificant in the cervical vertebra. So now, with a quick look at this, let's go back to the board and try to see the details which you can't actually pinpoint on this structure. Okay, here is a picture of the axis. You can see the body here, you can see the pedicles here. These are the superior articular facets, these are the inferior articular facets turned backward, so you can't turned in front rather. This is the posterior view of the axis, and these inferior articular facets are pointing to the front side, and these are pointing backward and upward, so you can see them. And you can see the pedicles here, stout, robust, and these are the laminae, and this is the prominent spine. If you look at the body again, because before you're looking at it from behind, so this is the posterior surface, and on the posterior surface you can make out this posterior longitudinal ligament coming up over here. So here you can also again see the posterior longitudinal ligament on this diagram. Here is the posterior longitudinal ligament, and you can see the continuation of the posterior longitudinal ligament up, and this is the membrana tectoria, the upward continuation of the posterior longitudinal ligament. Here you have the posterior longitudinal ligament, and this short piece which I could not accommodate anymore, this is the membrana tectoria. Over here you can see the membrana tectoria rising up, and at the odontoid process you can see the apical ligament here, you can see the apical ligament here, and you can see the apical ligament, this purple one, this is the apical ligament. And you can make out that at the flattened sides over here you have the alar ligament. See, we have written alar ligament, apical ligament, alar ligament. So this is the alar, these are the alar ligaments. Now because this is a side view, we have not been able to draw the alar ligaments here or here, but you have the alar ligaments. And at the neck of the odontoid process you can see the transverse band of the transverse ligament of the atlas. We have not attached it to the axis because it is not attached to the axis. This one is attached to the atlas. So the transverse ligament of the atlas with its upper band and lower band together form a cruciate arrangement. Here you can see the transverse ligament of the atlas, and you can make out the superior band over here, the inferior band over here going to the body. So the superior band, transverse ligament and the inferior band make up this cruciate arrangement. And on the anterior surface of the body, which you can't see in this diagram, but you can make out here, you have the anterior longitudinal ligament getting attached to the body and going up to the atlas. Here also you can see the anterior longitudinal ligament going up to the atlas. Beyond the atlas is continuous as the anterior atlanto-occipital membrane going up to the occipital bone. This is the occipital bone. This gap in the occipital bone is actually the foramen magnum. Now on the anterior, continuing on to the pedicles. These pedicles are short but stout. You can see the upper surface of the pedicle here and the lower part here. So over the pedicles you can see the second cervical spinal nerve, the ventral ramus here, the dorsal ramus curling back, and you can see the formation, the ventral root, dorsal root, or the complete nerve here, and the ventral ramus and the dorsal ramus over here. So this is the pedicle. You can see the second cervical nerve coming up above the axis, third cervical nerve exiting between the axis and the third cervical vertebra. Now these superior articular facets, these are forming synovial joint or zygapophyseal joints. Because these are synovial plane joints, you have the attachment of the articular capsule in purple over here. So these are the synovial joints, one pair above with the atlas and one pair below with the third cervical vertebra. In the vertebral canal itself, here you can see the spinal cord with the meninges and the epidural venous plexus over here. Coming to the transverse process, on the transverse process you can see the foramen transversarium, and on the foramen transversarium is the emergence of the vertebral artery, the vertebral veins and nerves. Now you can see that this vertebral artery is passing upward and outward. Why? Because the foramina transversaria of the atlas are at a greater distance. So if the foramen transversarium of the axis is here, the foramen transversarium of the atlas would be somewhere here. So it has to go outward to engage that foramen. That is why this is pointing in that direction. And to the transverse process you can see there are a number of muscle attachments. I have already said that memorizing these individual muscles is not important for the exam, but for the sake of completion we have drawn them. This is calenus medius, this is levator scapulae, this is planius cervicis, and on the body again you have the longus colli. We have not mentioned that. So in this diagram you can see there is the longus colli on the body. And we come down to the lamina over here. The lamina, you can see the attachment of the ligamentum flavum. See the attachment of the ligamentum flavum, and you can make out the attachment of the ligamentum flavum. This is the ligamentum flavum attached to the lamina. So because we have not drawn the spine, so this must not be a strictly midline section. This must be slightly off the midline. So actually this cut will be through the lamina, and because this cut is through the lamina, you can see the ligamentum flavum over here. So ligamentum flavum here, ligamentum flavum here, this is the ligamentum flavum, and the lamina unite to form the spine. At the spine, the most prominent ligamentum nuchae here, ligamentum nuchae. This is the tip of the spine, and you have the ligamentum nuchae over here. And to this spine are attached a number of muscles. Some of them are attached to the upper surface, some are attached to the inside. Now to the upper surface you have the inferior oblique and the rectus capitis posterior major. And to the inner surface you have the semispinalis cervicis, spinalis cervicis, multifidus and interspinalis. Now these muscles, again I would like to remind you, are not important for the exam, but for the completion's sake I have drawn these muscles over here. You need not memorize all of them. You just have to keep the idea, the general idea of this picture, and this picture. And if you have some amount of a faculty for drawing, you might be able to reproduce these pictures in your exam. Because this is such a small board, the pictures have become slightly cluttered and close to each other. And to recap, what are the joints formed by the axis? You have one pair of synovial plane joints over here. You have another pair of synovial plane joints over here. Between the lower surface of the body and the body of the third cervical vertebra, you have a secondary cartilaginous joint over here with the intervention of an intervertebral disc. And at the odontoid process with the anterior arch of the atlas, you have here a pivot joint, and this is the axis of the pivot, and this is the ring of the pivot by the transverse ligament of the atlas. And between the ligamentum flavum, between the lamina, you have the ligamentum flavum, and this ligamentum flavum with the adjacent lamina, it is also forming a sort of a fibrous joint. Now you are left with the simple things, that is, you are left with the ossification and the applied anatomy. You can make out from this diagram that the blue patches are the primary centers of ossification and the green ones are the secondary centers of ossification. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 primary centers of ossification. 2 for the odontoid process, visible at around the 6th month. 1 for the body at the 5th month of intrauterine life, and the earliest is probably this one. These at the root of the transverse processes at the 7th week of intrauterine life. So 6th month of intrauterine life here at the odontoid process, 5th month here, and earliest 7th week here. And the secondary centers of ossification, 1 for the lower slice of the body, because the body of the vertebra behaves like a long bone. It has an upper epiphysis and a lower epiphysis and the diaphysis. Because you have the odontoid process here, you don't have a separate upper epiphysis for the body, but you do have a separate lower epiphysis which appears at puberty. And for the tip, small wedge shaped area of the tip, you have a secondary center appearing at about the 5th year. Now we are left with the applied anatomy. Fractures of the axis. Now you can see that the axis might be fractured in a hyperextension injury or a hyperflexion injury or a vertical loading injury when you are falling to the ground, and the fractures may be like this: slicing of the tip, going through the base, taking a little bit of the body, or obliquely through the pedicles. And here you can see this is an injury when the neck is suddenly flexed in front, and this is an injury when there is sudden hyperextension of the neck. Sudden hyperextension of the neck actually would be in sudden deceleration injuries where there is a sort of a whiplash injury, and sudden forward flexion of the injury may be due to sudden stoppage when there is a sudden forward jerk to the head. So in either cases, these are the common sites of fracture, and this fracture through the pedicle, the interpedicular fracture, is also called the hangman's fracture. And that is because it was presumed in judicial hanging after the drop, there are usually 2 common patterns of injury. One is that the transverse ligament of the atlas might suddenly give way and the odontoid process might tip back and crush the junction of the medulla and the spinal cord over here. And the second thing is that the axis might fracture through these pedicles, and there might be a shifting of the axis on the 3rd cervical vertebra, thus crushing the spinal cord. So this fracture through the pedicles of the axis is what is actually called the hangman's fracture. In any case, if you have these fractures or rupture of the transverse ligament of the atlas, what you can do is you have to first reduce the fractures in position by this sort of arrangement, by these tongs. By these tongs and cranial traction, you have to actually disimpact the fragments and try to get them in position with an optimum weight without producing some amount of distraction. And after that, you are left with just 2 alternatives. One is that either you fit a cervical collar or a halo jacket or a Minerva jacket, and by the conservative methods you see if there is adequate union between the fragments. If there is not, if there is still instability persisting, then you have to go for fixation. You can fix the atlas and axis together, and if you need more stability, then the atlas, axis as well as the occipital bone might be fixed. All 3 together may be fixed with this sort of a rod and screw arrangement. And another thing is that when we studied the atlas, we did not mention that the part of the central nervous system that passes through the ring of the atlas, suppose the atlas is somewhere here, it is not exactly the spinal cord, but it is the end of the medulla oblongata and the junctional zone between the oblongata and the beginning of the spinal cord, so that if the odontoid process were to slip forward and crush the part of the central nervous system here, it would actually be compressing the vital centers of the medulla as well as the beginning of the spinal cord. I think that's enough for today. I have taken up much of your time. Thank you for bearing with me, and see you again.